A very good morning to everyone, and thank you for tuning in to the Bulletin on this beautiful Sunday morning, the 23rd of June. Clear blue skies here outside with a temperature of 15 degrees and a comfortable 18 degrees in my shack. You are listening to the club station of the Sandton Amateur Radio Club, ZS6STN, which is operated today from the shack of Stuart ZR1 Whiskey Tango in George, Western Cape. Once again, a warm welcome to everyone on frequency. I trust that you've had a great weekend thus far. The Club Bulletin is broadcast every Sunday at 8:45 local time on the following frequencies: 145.700 megahertz FM in the 2-meter band, and 7.115 megahertz lower side band in the 40-meter band. Today, via a relay from the shack of Null, ZR6 Delta X-ray, and finally Echolink ZS6STN-R. The bulletin is recorded and uploaded to ZS6STN's YouTube website. Please go to that link if you want to look at previous or listen to previous broadcasts. In the bulletin today, we start with the SARL general news, followed by club birthdays and club news, a special topic of interest. We start with the South African Radio League news for the Sunday, the 23rd of June, 2024. Good morning and welcome to the weekly news bulletin of the South African Radio League, read by Stuart ZR1 Whiskey Tango in George. In the news today, the SARL Spectrum and Technology Workroom, AMSAT SA Space Symposium, and Club and Contest news. Stay tuned for more information on these and other interesting news items. SARL Spectrum and Technology Work Group. The SARL set up a Spectrum and Technology Work Group. With the publication of various spectrum policies and the imminent publication of ICASA of the Equipment Type Approval Policy, the Council of the SARL has decided to establish a Spectrum and Technology Work Group, which will be known by the acronym SARL-STW. The STW will coordinate the various previous initiatives such as the Technology Work Group. The first task of STW will be to develop a document to highlight opportunities for amateur radio in the recently gazetted Spectrum Policy for Economic Development. STW will also coordinate the SARL's participation in the SABS TC3 and TC74 EMC and telecommunications technical communities. The WRC27 National Preparatory Work NPWG and the IARU Region 1 EMC and Noise Monitoring NMC committees. Another task of the Spectrum and Technology Work Group will be to set up technology webinars. The STW is inviting interested SARL and AMSAT SA members with an interest in the technology issues confronting amateur radio to join the STW. The first meeting will be held on the AMSAT SA WebEx platform on Thursday, the 4th of July at 20:30. Two SARL councillors, Carl Besaidano Jr., ZR6RK, and Guy Eales, ZS6GUY, are joining the STW, as well as Brian Jacobs, ZS6ZY, and Hans van Groenewald, ZS6AKV. The first meeting will be a general discussion of finding an administrator, coordinator, and developing a business plan. There is a real opportunity for the younger generation to contribute to amateur radio's future and to gain valuable personal experience. Send an email with your contact details and your area of interest to sarlstw@amateurradio.org.za. AMSAT SA Space Symposium. The AMSAT SA Space Symposium 2024 date is announced. AMSAT SA has announced the date for its 2024 Space Symposium. It will be an online event on Saturday, the 14th of September. This is the first call for papers to be considered for the presentation at the event. The theme of the event is Space, the Frontier Towards a Rewarding Technology Pastime. Prospective authors are invited to submit a short summary of the proposed paper in Microsoft Word format by the 31st of July 2024 to admin@amsetsa.org.za. Presentations are typically 20 to 30 minutes in length, followed by 10 minutes of Q&A. Participation in the event is free, but registration is required. Registration will be open on the 1st of July, with details posted on www.amsetsa.org.za. You are listening to a news bulletin of the South African Radio League. We turn to club news. We reminded you in a bulletin last week, but realized you forgot to diarize it. So this one is for you, as the event is coming Wednesday, the 26th of June at 1900 hours Central African time. And you do not want to miss it. This month's Power Hour Tech Talk will be covering all the ins and outs of Meshtastic and LoRa together with its use. There's an article about Meshtastic radio on page 72 of the May 2024 issue of Radio ZS. If you thought Meshtastic was perhaps a type of rice, or that LoRa was someone's spouse, then you really need to join the conversation this coming Wednesday evening. Out of interest, it is believed that the SARL Hamnet chasers on the Dakar balloon launch in 2023 used Meshtastic to track the balloon's flight. They arrived at its final landing spot almost before the balloon arrived. The Tech Talk will be hosted live by our special guest and resident guru, Brett Ari, ZS6MIV, using Zoom with audio relays on 145/700 ZS6STN repeater, an Echolink ZS6STN-R, and any connected All-Star nodes. Do you have a pen ready? The Zoom meeting ID is 845-9045-1304. I'll repeat that, 845-9045-1304. And the passcode is 503626. I repeat, 503626. If you missed the Zoom details, they are available on the SARL events calendar and your favorite club Facebook page. We would very much like everyone to attend, so please spread the word and join the Power Hour talk for collaborative and interactive learning experience on Wednesday, the 26th of June, 1900 Central African time. Contest news. A total of 30 logs was received, comprising 89 stations and 1,113 QSOs for the 2024 SARL Top Band Contest. 808 SSB, 295 digital, and 10 CW contacts were logged in 39 grids. Unfortunately, only FT8 was used for digital. One log was disqualified due to insufficient information being entered. First, Donnie Shetner, ZS6DPS with 188 points. Second, Philip van Tonder, ZS6PVT with 184 points. And third, Kubis Bosov, ZS6BOS, 180 points. Specifically, in the SSB section, first was Lucas Holzhausen, ZS6LH with 162 points. Second, Dani Schner, ZS6DPS, 138 points. And third, Philip van Tonder, ZS6 PVT with 138 points. In the digital section, first was Claret Duplessis, ZR6GRT with 68 points. Second was Krubis Boshoff, ZS6BOS, 64 points. And third, Farad Kutsia, ZS3TG with 58 points. In the CW section, first was Brent Steenkamp, ZS6DI with 14 points. Are you ready for the winter QRP contest? Do you know from which location you plan to operate and what radio, antenna and modes you will be using? We need you to participate as a contester and or a chaser. See the contest manual, page 35, for all the details. As an extra, there's a unique one-of-a-kind participant certificate for each leg of the 2024 QRP contest series, genuine collector items. To join in the exciting fun and experimentation with QRP, please diarize it to be on the air on Saturday the 20th of July from 7:30 to 9:30 UTC for the winter QRP contest. We move to the propagation report. Hannes Kutsia, ZS6BZP, reports that the solar activity is expected to be at moderate levels. There are currently 8 sunspot regions with simple to complex magnetic configurations visible. There is a high probability for C-class and moderate probability for M-class solar flares. If you want to do your own frequency predictions, the expected effective sunspot number for the week will be around 146. The 10 to 30 meter bands may, especially in the late afternoon and early evening, provide some good DX fun. Please visit the website spaceweather.sansa.org.za for further information. Finally, a diary of some upcoming events. 26th of June, the Sandton Power Hour Tech Talk. 28th to the 30th of June is the Ham Radio Friedrich Schaefen. 29th to the 30th of June is the ARRL Field Day. 1st of July, the start of the SARL financial year, and the October RAE registration opens. 6th of July, the SARL Newbie QSO Party. 7th of July, the ZS5 QSO Party. 9th of July, the provincial schools open. 12th of July, the closing date for ZS5 locks. 13th to 14th July is the IARU HF Championships. 15th of July is Devil Wood Day. 19th of July, the closing date for newbie logs. And finally, the 20th of July is the Winter QRP Contest. To conclude the SAR part bulletin, a recap of our main news stories. The SARL sets up a spectrum and technology work group. With the publication of various spectrum policies and the imminent publication of ICASA of the Equipment Type Approval Policy, the Council of the SARL has decided to establish a spectrum and technology work group, which will be known by the acronym ZARL-STW. This concludes our bulletin for this morning. Stay tuned for the ZS6STN Club News. Sandton Amateur Radio Club News. Let's start with some birthdays of club members. Last week we had ZR6DEB, Debbie Schultz, on the 17th of June, Gideon van Zyl on the 18th, ZS6LEB, Mark Coram, on the 22nd of June. Congratulations, and hope you had a great day on your birthday. Coming up this week, we have ZS6XPD, Peter Daisel, on the 26th of June, and ZS6VT, Johan Swanepoel, on the 27th of June. Congratulations and best wishes to you all. Right, club news. If you'd like to contribute to club news this morning, please call in now on 2 meters. ZS6STN is now listening.
ZS6HI.
ZS6HI. Good morning, Keith. Please take a round.
Good morning, Stuart. Thank you very much for a bulletin well received here at my QTH this morning. You heard it on the bulletin, but don't forget the Power Hour this coming Wednesday evening at 7 o'clock in the evening. So that one's hosted by the Sandton Amateur Radio Club, and it'll be Brett Airy, one of our own members, giving a presentation on Meshtastic and Laura. And as indicated in the bulletin, there's an article, I think it is in the May Radio ZS on Meshtastic. It was pretty awesome when I saw them using Meshtastic for the Baycar balloon, and those guys were effectively at the landing site at the same time as the balloon was. So they did very, very well using Meshtastic to track the balloon's progress across the skies at what was almost 30,000 meters above the ground. So pretty awesome. Then don't forget, today, for those going through to the SOTA antenna build and SOTA session at Brandon ZS6 Lima Zulu's place, he has invited a lot of people, and there's a few people who accepted. So don't forget to get through to Brandon's place this morning for the SOTA antenna build and the SOTA education session. Then Matthew, ZS6MDV, has put together an awesome fox hunt schedule for us. So this is really, we'll announce the date shortly, but it was due to take place on the 19th of June, but we just felt it was a little bit short notice for people, so we have postponed it. We'll publish the date shortly, but that is a triangulation event where you have to collaborate with your colleagues, and you have to interact with your colleagues on the repeater network so that you can triangulate the position of the fox. You do not have to get out there and find the fox. You have to just report its direction and bearing from your QTH, and hopefully using several QTHs around the area, we'll be able to triangulate the fox. And the fox is going to move, so it's not going to stay static as well, so we will communicate all of that. It will be a lot of fun for all of us, and we can collaborate then and triangulate this fox. And that will be in July. And then the RAE is starting. So I know that Samir, our RAE manager, he has arranged a WhatsApp group, and we are obviously looking for students who wish to undertake the RAE. So if you do know anybody who wants to undertake the RAE, please give them RAE at ZS6STN.org.za email address, and then Samir will be in contact with them and direct them to the WhatsApp group and so on. Remember that email address, RAE at ZS6STN.org.za. I also know that shortly the 40-meter club contest is coming up. I think that's in July. So be on the lookout for that. We'll announce that close to the time and send everyone a diary event on that one as well. Thank you very much, Stuart. ZS6STN, ZS6HI.
ZS6HI, ZS6STN. We'll turn to our special topic of interest this morning. And I thought this might interest some people. It's an overview of how Starlink's phased array antenna works by Curtis Arnold. So I presume everybody knows what Starlink is. It's Elon Musk's internet, which you pick up from satellites orbiting Earth. So utilizing a satellite dish that's the size of a pizza box to beam internet from a secluded forest location to a satellite revolving around the Earth at a distance of 550 kilometers is an awe-inspiring technological feat. What amplifies the astonishment is the fact that the Starlink satellites travel at speeds of 27,000 kilometers per hour. Simultaneously, they exchange data at rates reaching hundreds of megabits per second. Even as the dish and satellite dynamically orientate themselves to keep the data beamed accurately aligned between them. Furthermore, the dish must continually switch its connection between various satellites every few minutes as they rapidly move out of line of sight. For those bewildered by how such complex systems function, it's worth delving into the core technologies that make this satellite internet connection seem almost magic-like. First, we'll take a closer look at the internal mechanisms of the satellite dish itself, uncovering how it creates a focused beam capable of reaching outer space. Next, we'll study the adaptive technology that enables the dish to constantly direct the beam towards a moving satellite across the celestial dome. First, it's essential to understand the difference between a conventional television satellite dish and Starlink's ground dish, which playfully referred to by Elon Musk as Dishy Mac Flat. Sorry, I'll say it again. It's referred to by Elon Musk as Dishy Mac Flat Face, or simply Dishy. So back to television dishes, which employ a parabolic reflector and concentrate RF from a broadcast stationary satellite located approximately 35,000 kilometers above the Earth. In contrast to Dishy functions as both a receiver and a transmitter RF, connecting with a moving Starlink satellite a mere 500 kilometers away, the tightly focused RF beam between the two constantly orientate to maintain alignment with each other. The nature of this technology contrasts sharply with the traditional TV broadcast signals, which emanate from a satellite typically the size of a truck. Such satellite signals spread in a broad fan-like pattern, encompassing areas larger than South Africa. In contrast, Starlink's stable, table-sized satellites must remain in low Earth orbit to ensure the vital 20 millisecond latencies that are crucial for activities like seamless internet gaming or smooth web browsing. Consequently, the coverage area is far more restricted with a narrow beam. To provide satellite internet coverage for the entire globe, an extensive network of over 10,000 Starlink satellites is needed. These satellites, all whizzing around in low Earth orbit, i.e. about 550 kilometers above Earth, and at 27,000 kilometers per hour, work together to create a revolutionary internet experience, even in remote or previously underserved locations. Let's delve into the internal structure of Dishy Mac Flat Face. On the rear side, you'll find two motors and an Ethernet cable linking it to the router. These motors aren't engaged continuously to keep Dishy aligned with Starlink satellite. They function solely during the initial setup to guide the dish towards the correct broad orientation. Upon opening Dishy, you will come across an aluminum structure backplate, and on the flip side there's an expansive printed circuit board. On one face of the PCB there are 640 tiny microchips and 20 more prominent ones, laid out symmetrically in a pattern with finely detailed traces extending from larger microchips to the smaller ones. Additional components include the main CPU and the GPS module situated along the PCB's perimeter. The opposite face of the PCB reveals roughly 1,400 copper circles interspersed with a grid of squares. Next, you'll notice a rubber layer featuring a honeycomb structure with small notched copper circles, followed by another layer with similar honeycomb pattern, and finally the front part of Dishy. So what exactly are we observing here? In essence, there are 1,280 antennas configured in a hexagonal honeycomb formation, where each stack of copper circles acts as a singular antenna governed by the microchips on the PCB. This colossal assembly collaborates in a method known as the phased array to transmit and receive electromagnetic waves oriented towards and from the Starlink satellite, positioned 550 kilometers overhead. Here we are dealing with an aperture-coupled patch antenna consisting of 6 layers, the majority of which is encased within the PCB. Its appearance significantly deviates from traditional radio antennas and is frankly highly intricate. So let's break down to make it more digestible. For the sake of simplicity, we overlook a few layers and now focus on understanding the fundamental principles of how an electromagnetic wave is generated and propagated from the specific antenna. Starting at the base, we encounter the microstrip transmission feed for the antenna that originates from one of the small microchips. Above this copper feed line, there's a notched copper circle known as the antenna patch. This patch is part of a stack of such patches that form the phased array antenna. The coupling is capacitive. The phased array antenna allows the dishi to electronically steer its beam without moving physically. Two brief but crucial observations warrant mention. Firstly, this antenna's complexity exceeds what we've covered so far, encompassing additional features such as two circular patches, dual H slots, dual feed wires, a reflective rear plane, and multiple components isolating one antenna from its neighbors. The circuit board houses a total of 1,280 identical antennas arranged in a hexagonal formation to form a phased array antenna. Can change the direction of its beam electronically without physically moving the antenna. This is achieved through the precise control of the phase of the signal at each individual antenna element in the array. The key to beam steering is the phased array is controlling the phase of the signal at each antenna element. The phase is the position of the wave cycle at any given point in time. By adjusting the phase of the signal that each element emits, the combined wavefront can be steered in a specific direction. When the signals from all the elements are combined, they interfere with each other. By carefully controlling the phase of each element's signal, the interference can be made constructive in the desired direction, where the peaks of the waves add up, and destructive in other directions, where the peaks of some waves cancel out the troughs of others. This reinforces the signal in the desired direction and suppresses it in others, effectively steering the beam. So an example, if all elements emit their signals in phase with no phase shift, the beam points straight ahead. If the phase of the signal at each element is progressively delayed, phased, the beam can be steered to that one side. Conversely, if the phase is progressively advanced, the beam can be steered to the other side. This phase adjustment is done electronically, allowing for rapid changes in the beam direction. The CPU outcomes of the phase shift are directed to 20 substantial chips referred to as beam formers. Each of these beam formers governs the coordination between 32 smaller units known as front-end modules, where every single one manages two antennas. The necessary computations are reassessed and distributed to all microchips at intervals of microseconds, ensuring that the beam accurately targets the satellite. Consequently, the beam steering becomes adaptable within a 100-degree viewing field. Finally, some frequencies used. The Starlink dishi, the user terminal, communicates with the Starlink satellites using frequencies in the Ku band and the Ka band of the electromagnetic spectrum. Specifically, the Ku band, this is a band that ranges from 10.7 gigahertz to 12.6 gigahertz for the downlink satellite to dishi, and 14 gigahertz to 14.5 gigahertz for the uplink, which is dishi to satellite. The Ka band, this band ranges from 17.7 gigahertz to 21.2 gigahertz for the downlink, and 27.5 gigahertz to 30 gigahertz for the uplink. These frequency bands are commonly used in satellite communications due to their ability to support high data rates and bandwidth, essentially for providing broadband internet services. Finally, the Mr. McFlatface embodies a singular phased array, but on the Starlink satellite, 4 phased array antennas are present. 2 of these are allocated for communication with multiple dishes, and the remaining 2 for ground station interaction to transfer internet traffic. Well, I hope you found that interesting. I mean, I kind of knew it was a phased array, but some of the details are very interesting. Thank you to everyone out there for listening. We trust that you've enjoyed the bulletin today. Please feel free to give comments or any constructive criticism. Thank you to the stations that assisted with relays and broadcasting, and to those who contribute to the content from time to time. Join us again next Sunday, 8:45 a.m. for the regular bulletin of the Sandton Amateur Radio Club. This ends the weekly bulletin for the Sandton Amateur Radio Club, ZS6STN, which is operated today from the shack of Stewart ZR1 Whiskey Tango. Thank you to all our listeners, and 73. ZS6STN now relinquishes all frequencies for general use.